The Hawai'i Sports Radio Network on 95.1 FM and AM 760 presents Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ule Agbayani.
Good morning, beautiful people. It's Wake Up in the Den. I'm Ku'ule Agbayani, not alongside Paul Breck today because it is Thursday and he is out with Michael Lescaro getting set up for HPU Sharks Weekly. That will come up just after the first hour of this show at 9 o'clock. So Thursday today, so we're just going from 8 to 9, but I do have a very special co-host with me today. I'm going to treat it as a co-host and not necessarily our in-studio guest because, once again, it's usually Paul's here, but it's just me. So we got a very special co-host today, the one, the only University of Hawaii football special teams coordinator, Thomas Sheffield.
Aloha.
Ooh, I love it. We're ready to rock and roll. Well, first of all, Thomas, Coach Chef, thanks for taking the time to come to the studio. I know it's a bye week, so we got fortunate that you had some free time today and were able to come by this morning. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
All right. We are going to get into a bunch of stuff, obviously, to do with the team, a little bit of special teams talk. We got an entire hour to chat. But, you know, it's a bye week for UH, so clearly there's nothing going on in the world of college football, especially to deal with Hawaii. I mean, has there been stuff going on like the last couple of days or something? I don't know. It's been kind of mellow in the world of sports, especially in, you know, the Mountain West for sure.
Yeah, as college football continues to change, things happen, but you know, we haven't really talked about it much as a team. We've kind of kept our focus where it needs to stay, and that's winning football games because that's the things that we can control. You know, the conference realignment, you know, all the conversation about Mountain West, Pac-12, I even saw Conference USA, you know, that's out of our hands. All we can focus on is playing football, coaching-wise, just getting our boys ready to play football, and then let those dominoes fall the way that those dominoes will fall in whatever conference we end up in, whether it's Mountain West, Conference USA, or Pac-12. We just got to keep rolling and keep our focus where it needs to be.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll get into it a little bit more, but I know it's kind of just been circulating the news. The latest news, just for everybody who's been curious, UNLV and Air Force, they have officially, the latest reporting, have passed on the Pac-12 and the ACC and expected to remain in the Mountain West. Again, we'll follow if there's anything breaking during the time as we have Coach Chef here with us. But I want to focus our discussion more so on what really matters, and that is the home team, because as you just said, within the locker room, you know what, we're not going to dwell on it too much or at all. I know head coach Timmy Chang had said during the media scrum earlier in the week that you can only control what you're going to control, and in the locker room and on the team, you guys can control how you play every game and whether we win or lose, and that's going to continue to be the main focus.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we get judged off of is wins and losses, and you know, Coach Chang, his focus has never changed. He wants to give this state a team that everyone can be proud of, and so that's our focus. And you know, just continue to pour into our football players because they need it, and that's what they want, and that's where our focus needs to be. And so, as coaching staff, that's our message: is we're going to continue to pour into you guys, ignore all the outside noise, whether it's good or bad, because at the end of the day, it's this thing's out of our control. And so, again, you know, we're trying to give the state a team that they can be proud of, and I think Coach Chang has that vision, and he's working really hard along with the rest of us to make sure we get that done. And I think that you saw a step go in the right direction last week versus UNI.
Yeah, definitely a good game against UNI. I do want to at least go back a little bit more as well as you guys get prepared to go on the road next week at San Diego State, but I want to go back to the last road game against Sam Houston. I know we're ripping off the Band-Aid, and normally I wouldn't go back this far because, again, we had a really good win on Saturday against Northern Iowa. I will fight all the haters every day that do not give Hawaii the credit for, because UNI is a FCS school, but they're a very quality FCS program. Another quality program that used to be in the FCS, it was Sam Houston, and now just the second season in the FBS. But I want to bring it up again only because that was your school. Sam Houston is where you kind of got everything started for yourself in football. So first of all, though, when you're just preparing yourself to go back to your former home, just how was that like before we get into the game itself?
Yeah, honestly, it was really cool just to be able to go back. I hadn't been back since I graduated, and obviously that is where I started my coaching career under Coach Fritz. And so, it was a cool homecoming, but you wanted to go there and win, especially in front of all your friends and family. We have a lot of Texas kids on our roster, and those kids had a lot of people at that game as well. And it stinks that we didn't perform the way that we wanted to. And we gotta learn from those errors and mistakes, and just continue to work to get better. But it was good to be able to see family, that I don't get to see very often, and it was good to have my family, Emily and the kids there, with their grandmothers and everybody. And so, it was cool, but at the same time, the focus was on winning the game. It was a full circle moment though, for sure, because it's like, that's where you start. And now 12 years later, here you are, at the University of Hawaii, of all places. Like, how crazy is that? You know what I mean? Like, when I'm one of the lucky ones. And I try to tell our kids that all the time. We're the lucky ones, no matter wins or losses, with what we do for a living, and we get to go outside and play every single day. You just try to keep things in perspective.
And we are joined in studio by UH Special Teams Coordinator Thomas Sheffield. All right. The unfortunate side, of course, of that Sam Houston game was just a very uncharacteristic game on all fronts. And we'll talk about how awesome Special Teams is doing actually this season, of course. But for the most part, that Sam Houston game, I think fans, including myself, someone that very much built up our team, like, we're going to go there. Sam Houston is not better than us. Like, we're better on paper. I made the reference to people that watch combat sports. I'm like, pound for pound, Hawai'i is by far better than this Sam Houston team. And what we saw against Sam Houston was kind of a shock for everybody, including myself. But just, again, not dwelling too much on the game itself, but if you can kind of take us through as much as you can share, just the mood after that game, the trip home on the charter, and then once I know there's a 24-hour rule, but kind of coming back to practice that Monday. I mean, what was everything just with the locker room and then amongst the coaches themselves?
Yeah, I mean,
preparing for Northern Iowa.
From after the game, obviously it was very emotional. As nobody, I don't think anybody, even on our football team, expected to put that product on the field on that particular night. You know what I mean? And so, we felt like we were the better team as well. I still feel like we're the better team, but at the end of the day, they got the win. And, Coach Chang took that one, and he took accountability for that one. And he told the boys that, and he said, but from here on out, we're going to go back to work, and we're going to try to figure this thing out. And so, after the game, obviously emotional. On the flight home, very quiet. I don't really think I heard anyone talk. And that's kind of what you expect. And that kind of shows the growth of a football team, because it wasn't always like that. In other places I've been, you could lose a game and you could feel like the kids didn't care as much. I don't think we have that here. I know that our kids are really bought in. I know they were really hurt by that. And just throughout the game, we would do a good thing, and then we would turn around and do a bad thing. It was just very inconsistent play. And that's something that as we go back out on the road, we got to continue to work on and to figure out and, show our maturity as a ball club. And I think a big piece of that puzzle will be the maturity of our ball club and how they handle, not just travel, but being in a new place, being in a different stadium. Those factors matter, and people don't really understand that, but they do play a part in the mental part of the football game. And so, moving forward, that's the past, and we're going to move on from it. And, we get a great opportunity next week to go back out on the road against San Diego State, who's a good football team, and kind of redeem ourselves from that Sam Houston debacle. So that's, again, where our focus is at. That's where we're going to go. And we get a chance, really great opportunity to go prove it next Saturday.
Yeah, I feel like that performance, though, against Northern Iowa was already a good start to the redemption from that Sam Houston game, and definitely hope to carry that over against San Diego State. But speaking of that Northern Iowa game, though, as we mentioned, special teams doing really well this season. So I'm going to give you a chance to talk all about your unit. But it was kind of funny, though, and I want you to share the story about Lucas Burrow not really getting able to punt because Hawaii was doing so well against Northern Iowa.
Yeah, when the offense is clicking, it's very special, and everybody got a glimpse of that on Saturday. And then when you just look at how the defense is playing, how the special teams is playing, and now that the offense is clicking really well, when you put three phases of football together and you play complementary football, really special things can happen. Northern Iowa was a really good football team. I actually, when I watched the film, I was like, man, this might be the best team we faced. Like that's how I felt about it. And then, they tried to control the clock. They did a great job of controlling the clock versus Nebraska. They held Nebraska to 34 points. We scored 36. I don't know.
Better.
Maybe we beat Nebraska.
Yep,
Who knows?
We're better.
But all jokes aside, they were a really good football team. And, what Coach Chang and the offensive coaches were able to do in that game of controlling the clock, playing the game that they wanted to play, and being efficient in the way that they want to play it, kept the punt team off the field, which in my eyes, I'm like, heck yeah, that's beautiful. Now, Lucas Burrow felt a different type of way because his whole family actually flew out from Australia just to come to a game. This is one of the few games that they were going to make, and then they only saw him punt one time. So it is what it is. It was funny after the game because they were like, the family is kind of giving it to me a little bit about how we didn't punt. And then, Lucas at the end of the game, he was hoping we would punt it instead of taking a knee for victory formation. But, it's funny, but it's a really good thing when we only have to punt one time.
Yeah, I love that background story to everything because you don't think about it like as a media member and as a fan, you're like, oh, this is perfect. Wow,
Yeah.
that's good to keep the punter off the field.
Heck yeah.
But then as when you're a specialist like that and you don't necessarily get a chance to quote unquote play
Yeah.
too often, and then the family comes in and oh well, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, and Lucas has done such a good job. Man. Like he really has. He's been such a great addition to what we've been trying to build. And he's fit right in with the boys, and he really is a program guy. I don't want it to come off like he's being selfish. His whole family was there, and it was a great opportunity for them to see him play, and they got to see him play one play other than the field goals. Got to see him play one play.
All right, we're going to continue our conversation on special teams as we are joined by UH football special teams coordinator Thomas Sheffield. So we'll be right back after this quick break. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Wake Up in the Den on the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network.
Wake Up in the Den with Kulale Agbayani on the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den. Kulale Agbayani with my special in-studio co-host for the day, UH football special teams coordinator Thomas Sheffield, as Paul Brecht and Michael Esquero are getting set up on site at the HPU Esports Arena, powered by DSE Hawaii, to bring you Sharks Weekly coming up at 9 o'clock. So be sure you stick around for that, as today's featured sport is going to be HPU men's basketball. So you can hear from head coach Jesse Nakanishi and a couple of players as well. So stick around for that coming up after this show. But getting back to UH football. All right, I'm going to give you the floor here, Coach Chef, and because special teams has been quite special so far this season. We talked about Lucas Burrow not really having to punt, or only being able to punt one time against Northern Iowa, but I mean, Kansei has been great, and you got a touchdown or a 2-point conversion, but still nonetheless last week against Northern Iowa. So, I mean, talk all about your guys and how well they've been doing so far.
Yeah, it's funny what great specialists can do. And we've always had them here. Matt Shipley was a really good specialist, and when he moved on, we had to find a way to replace. And I feel like within our room, between Lucas, Kansei, Solomon, Ben Falk, who is just the best, we have really good specialist play, which then helps the rest of the guys out. And so special teams, there's no secret. Special teams hasn't always been good here under me and in the Coach Chang era, but it's always been built for this third year. And we knew that if we could get some really good specialists that it would tie it all together, because we put so much emphasis on the techniques and the fundamentals with the kids, because, we can draw everything up on the board and scheme it up, but like I tell the boys, all that scheme means nothing if we can't execute our technique and fundamentals. And so, it's just the kids. The kids are bought in. They play really hard. When you turn on the special teams film, you'll see that there's 11 guys playing really hard. Yesterday, we did a kickoff versus kickoff return drill, and the best part about it was just watching the kids play until I blew that whistle that the play was dead, and so the buy-in from the boys, and then at the end of the day, they're the ones playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
The credit needs to go to them because they're the ones that are executing what we're asking them to execute. We don't play the games as coaches. But so kudos to them, and I'm appreciative of everything that those kids are doing, from a special teams aspect, defensive aspect, offensive aspect. But, special teams is special because it ties both offense and defense techniques and puts them all together. Coach DT, our defensive coordinator, always tells the boys special teams is the purest form of football, because at the end of the day is blocking and tackling, and when you keep it that simple and you can teach it that simple, and the kids can understand it, really good things can happen. And so we're right where I think we should be, but it's not how you start, it's how you finish. So we got 8 more games to go, right? 8 more games to go, and I want to make sure that standard stays the same.
And speaking of how you start and how you finish, had a great start with Tylen Hines, someone that's new to your unit, and had that punt return for the touchdown. But lately it seems like teams are trying not to get it in his direction. So how are we kind of balancing that? And are we hoping to try to, obviously you can't control what the other team's going to strategize against Hawaii special teams, but hoping we can see a little bit more from Tylen and what he has been able to do so far.
Yeah, I do think that, especially in the last couple of games, people have tried to keep it away from him a little bit, especially in the last one. You could kind of tell that they were just trying to punt it out of bounds. And, it's a great execution of the game plan by them. I feel like personally that I got to do a better job of putting Tylen in better positions on the field as far as where we align him. There's a couple of those punts the other day where I did feel like he could catch him if we just would have aligned him just 5 yards to the left, as crazy as that sounds. You know what I mean? And so, in our stadium, it's kind of challenging because, you're playing the wind too, because the wind is so hardcore. So we offset him a certain way, and then the ball gets punted really low and the wind doesn't get a chance to mess with it. And so there's so many factors to it, but he has been super dynamic. We've had a couple of kickoff returns that have gone big, but, we got to eliminate some penalties there. But, if I was playing against Hawaii and I saw that little dude back there, I'm not trying to punt to him either, to be honest with you. And again, that's the players. Again, everybody keeps saying like your special teams are doing so well, but it's really about these kids and what they're doing and their athletic ability. And all we got to do as coaches is not mess it up, right? And so, but yeah, just the return game, we got to help our offense out a little bit more. I'm not very happy with where it's at in a sense. Like that one touchdown was really good, but I want more, and I think the kids want more. I know Tylen wants more for sure, and so we just got to keep working through our technique and fundamentals to give him space when he's catching that football, so that at the end of the day, when he has space, it's really hard to tackle that dude, and we saw that versus Delaware State. And so, that's where our focus is getting back on track in the return game, and then continuing to be really good in the coverage game. Yeah,
and I know the fans wouldn't mind some more. We've talked about it the last time you were on the show, where with the NFL changing its rules and you want to see more returns. Yeah, maybe we know not everything returning for a touchdown is special, but even if you get like 20 yards after that return, it gets the fans like really excited. Gets the offense in the best position possible to hopefully set up, at the very least, get 3 points at the end of the drive. So we're all hoping as fans to see Tylen be able to somewhat get into that action again.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the whole plan, is like once we catch the ball, we're only, touchdowns are great, but the percentage of you scoring on every punt return is extremely low. Our goal is to get at least one first down, so 10 yards, right? If we feel like we can get the offense one free first down on us from a special teams aspect, we've done our job. Now, you talk about 20-yard returns. Those are the explosive ones that, again, I think are in there and that we can continue to create. And then on kickoff return, 40-plus yard returns, which we've had 2 this year. But, again, unfortunately, they got called back for 2 holding penalties. And so those are things that we can clean up, and those are things that if we can get it right, we can put our offense in a better position to go score some points.
All right. We are joined in studio by UH Special Teams Coordinator Thomas Sheffield. If you guys have any specific questions you want to ask Coach Sheff, you can text us at 808-888-KGU1. That's 808-888-5481. I want to get into a couple of things that our Michael Lescaro actually put together, because they're interesting questions as it deals with special teams and some other players. But we'll go back to basics. He says, to help better educate everyone, what's the difference between a long snapper and a short snapper? And is it rare to have both on a roster, or is it more common than we think?
Yeah, so a long snapper does the punting. He snaps the punts because that's a 15-yard snap, hence long snapping. And then the short snapper handles the field goal. Usually you have one guy, and again, the short snap is at 7.5, 8 yards max. We're a 7.5 team. But it's not unusual for one guy to do both. Solomon has done both the last 2 years, but he was battling some injuries in fall camp, and he wasn't able to fully participate throughout fall camp like we had hoped. And then Hunter just kept getting better and better and better and better, and he worked so hard. And the only, the thing that he really needed was some game experience. So I felt like, moving forward, he did enough to show us that he could be the short snapper while Solomon continues to be the long snapper and take some things off of Solomon, and it's really paid off. Like, Hunter has done an unbelievable job. I was so stoked that we got that 2-point conversion and threw it to him. Everybody's like, how's the snapper eligible? It's called scheming it up. That was a really cool moment because, Coach Ray, Coach Jack Ray, who's basically the co-special teams coordinator, if we're just being honest, he just doesn't get the title or the money for that. But, he draws some things up in the dirt sometimes as far as the swinging gate stuff. And, I've been so nervous to call it the first 3 games, and he kept telling me, just call it. And we finally call it, and we execute at a very high level. And so, it's been really good to have both of those guys perform at a high level. And it plays in a part of why we're playing well on special teams. Yeah.
And speaking of Jack Ray, that's another thing Michael brought up, and just how much more has he contributed to just the overall special teams? Jack Ray.
Yeah. Coach Ray, man, you talk about a young coach that, works extremely hard. He is honestly like my son, to be honest. He played for me. And then, after he played for me, he went to Nevada, which was his dream job. And I knew the special teams coordinator there. So, it's all about connections in our business. And so he got his start over there. And then 1 year later, I get the Nevada job, and we're reunited. We're the 2 best friends that anybody could have. In all seriousness, but in all seriousness, like, he's an unbelievable young coach who brings so much to the table, and he's going to be a really, 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 really good special teams coordinator one day. And honestly, our special teams could not have the success that it's had without him in that chair, doing all the work behind the scenes and coaching up the boys when I'm in meetings or doing something else. Like, Hawaii's lucky to have someone like Coach Ray.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about something, because I asked you when I saw you in the office the other day, but just to share with the fans, because a significant change that happened on Saturday was having running backs coach Anthony Arsenal up in the booth now to kind of be the eye in the sky. So if you can share a little bit of an insight as to why that change happened, who else is in the booth, and is that something that we're going to continue to do moving forward?
Honestly, I don't know why that happened, because I'm not in the offensive staff room very much. I think that it was just, just getting an extra set of eyes up there. We got a lot of young coaches up there that do an unbelievable job. But, sometimes you need somebody older up there to kind of help and see some things and, directly communicate with Coach Chang or, Coach Morrison, whoever it may be, Coach Faavi, just to kind of, help with some of the things that we're getting and the pictures that we're seeing on offense. And Coach Arsenault's been coaching for a long time, and he's able to help that and kind of close that gap up there.
And we are joined in studio, or my co-host for today,
Yeah.
UH Special Teams Coordinator Thomas Sheffield, in studio as Michael and Paul are getting set up for HPU Sharks Weekly. But we're going to take another break, and we'll be back in about a minute here on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network.
Back to more Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawaii Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to all of you, the beautifulest of all the beautiful people. Let's Wake Up in the Den. I'm Ku'ulei Agbayani, along with my special co-host for today, UH Special Teams Coordinator Thomas Sheffield, as Paul Brecht and Michael Lescaro are out at the HPU Esports Arena powered by DSC Hawaii, getting set up for Sharks Weekly featuring men's basketball. So be sure you guys stick around for that coming up at 9 o'clock. All right, sticking with our UH football conversation, we were talking all about a lot of the contributors to special teams and also Anthony Arsenault being up in the booth. I love how you said, I don't really know why that change happened, but it seemed to, if that's what made the difference against Northern Iowa, even so slightly, then we'll see what happens. I can only imagine too, because Timmy and Coach Arsenault goes way back, right?
Yeah.
So like he's probably the one that can be like, no, this is what I see. Like you listen to me, and that kind of dynamic of a relationship.
And I think, to be fair, Coach Chang listens to everybody. Like he really does. He takes everybody's input. And obviously there's guys that he's built up a bigger rapport with, and he trusts more and whatnot. But Saturday was so good because that. Everybody's been, you hear it all the time, the offense, waiting on the offense to click. And, man, people just need to stay patient because sometimes things take time. Imagine that. It's not the microwave era all the time. You don't just put a plate in 1 minute and, bam, it's good to go. These things take time. And so, I think everybody got a glimpse of what it's supposed to look like and what it's going to look like moving forward.
I want to kind of go back to one of Michael's questions because this is a good one. So he wants to know any offense or defensive players that aren't specifically on special teams, like your kicker, punter, snappers, that deserve some recognition and praise for their contributions on special teams.
There are so many, to be completely honest. The old man Noah Kemma is just number one on my list. The value he brings to special teams is unbelievable. He's the quarterback of all of our phases, essentially, to be honest. Nahe has done an unbelievable job on our kickoff team. Jonah Pinoke, this is really the first time that he's played special teams, and he has done an unbelievable job. There's a lot. Justin Sinclair, who's the reigning, defending, undisputed special teams player of the year from 2023. I almost went full buffer right there on that, but I decided not to. But there's so many guys that have just brought so much value, whether they're on the field or they're off. Like a guy like Logan Taylor, who brings value in so many different ways, but he brings so much value on special teams as well. Kuau, Ezra, Peter. Before we took Peter off, Peter was doing a really good job. There's just so many. It's hard to name them all. But, yeah, the good thing is Coach Chang allows myself and Coach Ray to use the whole roster. And so when you're able to do that, you're able to use starters on special teams, which we haven't always done. It makes a world of difference. It really, really does. And so, again, shout out to our players who've just done an unbelievable job buying in and executing the game plans that we come up with. They deserve all the credit.
Yeah, and we are joined with my special co-host for today, UH Special Teams Coordinator Thomas Sheffield. All right, I want to kind of go back to your overall relationship with Coach Timmy Chang. We went extensively in that whole story about not unpacking the boxes when you guys went from Nevada to Colorado State to come in here to Hawaii. But you've been working alongside him for a long time, and now in the third season of being the head man. So what are some of the things that you've seen him and how he's grown as the head guy and as a just overall person for in his third year here at Hawaii football from being in your guys' early days together?
Yeah, I think that, when you become a first-time head coach, and I think this goes for anybody, there's a feeling out process, especially with the situation that we came into. He really, he really understands this island probably better than anybody on our staff, and he understands that the pressure that comes with playing Hawaii football, especially as a local boy, and now I'm sure early on he's felt that pressure as a head coach, but he has just grown so much, leaps and bounds from where we were in 2022 to where we are in 2024. I think he's kind of finding and he has found exactly who he needs to be, what he needs to be, and how he needs to be on a daily basis to ensure that we win. And he's surrounding himself again with people he really trusts, like Coach Morrison, Coach Arsenault, Coach DT, and I feel like he feels very comfortable with his staff and he trusts his staff, and that goes a long way. He probably doesn't feel like he has to do everything, but man, there's nobody better for the job. I've always said that. Even when we're losing, I just trust the process, and people have to understand that he has a vision for what it's going to be. And, again, where we took the program over in 2022, all the starters had left. They had all gone to the transfer portal, and we had to really build this thing from the ground up. And that's tough for any coach, much less a first-time head coach. And so, the record may not show what we all want it to show, but at the end of the day, when you just dissect the whole situation and you see the big picture, there is nobody better than Timmy Chang for this head coaching job.
Yeah, and I want to actually, this is something that it just hit me in the middle of you talking about Timmy being perfect here when he took over when he did, but also just with everything going on in college football and specifically what we saw happening with UNLV starting quarterback and Matt Sluka. But then it got me thinking, and during this time, Timmy, from a player's perspective, is even better for the job because we go back to when Timmy was coming out of high school and recruited, and even his parents were like, "Oh, go away, go experience." But he wanted to stay here. He wanted to give back, and he knows how important it is. And I can only imagine, we can feel blessed and appreciative that he is the head guy in charge right now. Yeah. Just aside from the X's and O's, but just being able to speak and be the example. Hey, I stayed back. I didn't take these other opportunities, and it's perfectly fine that some kids do. But I think it's perfect that he's that example to all of these kids that, hey, you got to make sure you play for something bigger than just the money or all of those, the big schools and the accolades.
Yeah. And the thing about that is I don't think that this, with what college football is right now, I don't think it's ever been harder to be a head football coach, especially with everything that we have to deal with on a daily basis as far as the NIL. So many street agents out there, so many adults that, just prey on these kids and try to take advantage of these kids and trying to find a quick buck. It is the world that we live in right now, and it's unfortunate because, these kids do listen to some of that outside noise. You know what I mean? But all Coach Chang ever does is share his experiences with the players and tells them, guys, I was sitting in those seats that you're sitting in. Here's what I did. Whether it was good decision, bad decision, he tells them the truth. He tells them, and I think that's why we're able to hang on to so many kids and not lose kids in the portal, because he is very honest, and he is I've worked for a lot of head coaches, and I truly mean this from the bottom of my heart. There's no head coach that is better with his players than Timmy Chang. He just relates so well to them. He just talks to them directly. He knows that the best policy is to be completely honest. And he just shares his experiences, and he encourages the rest of us coaches to do that as well. And that creates relationships. Money is money, and money. It's nice to have it. It does make life easier. State, I think we can all agree. But the one thing that money can't give you is relationships, and that's what we sell, and that's who we are, and that's how it's going to always be. We're a developmental program. We are going to coach harder than anybody else. We are going to pour into our players more than anybody else. And if we have things that we can give them, then yeah, we'll give it to them. But the landscape, do you really want to live in that world of where your starting quarterback quits in the middle of the season because of $100,000 deal that was made allegedly? That's not the world that I want to live in. And I'm actually very thankful that we are at Hawaii and that we don't have to deal with these problems. And I'm thankful that we get to be on this separate part of the world, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, with less distractions, because that allows us as a team to just pour into each other and to unify and create these unbreakable bonds and these unbreakable relationships that'll last forever. That money will be spent. These relationships will last forever. And that's what we tell the Hawaii kids, the local boys. If they want to go off and do their thing at some other program, it is what it is. And we're happy for you. Like, why wouldn't we be happy for you? It's a great opportunity. That's all these kids have ever worked for, is getting these scholarship offers and going and playing Division I football. We just want to try to keep some of them home and build a program, because we do understand the talent that is on this island. And if we can keep that talent home, this program, yeah, we could go to the Pac-12 and be very successful if that's the conversation we want to have. You know what I mean? But we got to continue to try to keep these local boys home.
Yeah, and I think what makes Hawaii unique, especially about the culture, is it's all about kind of like just the humble beginnings, right?
Yeah.
We don't really have much, and I know you're not from here, but we've discussed your story before too, humble beginnings as well, and I like that that's kind of the vibe of the program. It's, yeah, I know fans and everyone's going to complain about the stadium and the lack of resources, as we should, because the legislature needs to help out and the rest of the powers that be needs to buy in more to the program. But until that happens, we can only, again, control what we can control. And I love that the vibe we get from Timmy Chang, of course, and all the way down to all the other coaches and then to the players is that, you know what, we're going to just go out there and kick butt and do the best with what maybe little we have compared to some of these bigger schools.
Yeah. And then, at the end of the day, sometimes what does that money get you? And I'm not talking negatively about other programs, but there are programs that have millions and $1 million poured into their kids, and they're getting the same results as some of the teams that don't. There's a team in Florida right now that has been struggling, and they've put a lot of money into their program. There's a couple actually, but we're in the same spot as far as wins and losses, and the only difference is they have $1 million roster. We don't. But what we do is we pour into them. We pour into our kids. We love them. We love them unconditionally, and we give them every ounce of our being, and again, try to build relationships that last forever. Because at the end of the day, when you walk between those white lines, all that money means nothing. You got to play for the man next to you, and that's the message that we're preaching.
I love it. All right, we are joined in studio by my special co-host for today, UH Special Teams Coordinator Thomas Sheffield. We got to take our last break, and we'll be back to close things out here on Wake Up in the Den on the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network.
Wake Up in the Den with Ku'ulei Agbayani on the Hawai'i Sports Radio Network, 95.1 FM and AM 760.
Welcome back to Wake Up in the Den. Ku'ulei Agbayani, joined in studio by a special co-host, that is UH Special Teams Coordinator Thomas Sheffield.
Yeah.
Woo! A lot of good conversations today. In case anyone kind of missed the beginning of the show, because I still want people to get your overall opinion, and we talked about the culture in the locker room and everything Timmy is doing, but just to rehash and reiterate what the locker room vibe is like, kind of seeing all of this conference realignment nonsense that's going on. That's been the storyline during the bye week.
Yeah. We don't talk about it, honestly, and I don't think our kids really care what conference we play in, to be completely honest. And I know our coaches don't care. We just want opportunities to play football. And so, the vibe is good. The vibe is focused on winning the next, we got a stretch right now of 7 straight games of home, away, home, away, home, away, home. I think that added up to 7, how I did that.
We'll say it did.
Yeah, we'll go back and listen. But that's our focus. And, there's so many things in college football that are out of our control, that the powers that be have complete control over, and they're going to make their decisions one way or the other, and what we say isn't going to matter. So what matters is us winning games, and that's where our focus is on winning games.
All right, talking about winning games, and we got to kind of address it ever so slightly now that we talked about the Sam Houston game, but the one of the stats and quote unquote records that is not a good one for UH is that we don't play very well after bye week. So here we are, another bye week, and heading into playing at San Diego State next week. So has there been a little bit of a change at all during bye weeks, or it's just we're just looking at Sam Houston as it is what it was, and we're not really changing what happens in the bye week leading up to the next road trip at San Diego State?
Yeah, I think that at the end of the day, you got to just chalk it up as an experience. I didn't even know that we didn't play well after bye weeks. I had no clue. That's how little I pay attention to those things,
yeah.
And where my focus is. But whatever that is, all I can say is it's time for us to change it, and we get that opportunity next Saturday against San Diego State in San Diego. And so, we can't talk about it, got to go be about it. And that's kind of the mantra of it. And at the end of the day, we're going to practice the way we practice. We're going to do things the way we do things. We've probably turned up the intensity this week in practice, to be honest with you, now that you say something about it. But, we're still just following the script. We're still enjoying the process. We're all trusting Coach Chang's plan and just continuing to move forward.
Yeah, and again, going to San Diego State, hoping to have a good and solid performance, especially to open up Mountain West play.
Yep.
But then even more so, we turn around and then you play a daunting opponent in Boise State. I do need to mention one of our listeners that we have that is he's a Hawaii fan, but he actually lives out in Boise and always is a listener of the show. And he said, question for Coach, do I need to make friends with the bus company here in Boise to give them the Delaware State special? JK.
The good thing is, if memory serves me right, Boise comes here, right? They come to the island to play. We don't have to go to the blue turf. And so, that's typically a pretty good equalizer. Like it is, for whatever reason, it's hard to play here. You know what I mean? And so that'll help us. I know Boise is who Boise is, but our coaching staff, I think we've all played Boise. I know Coach Chang and myself and Coach Ray and Coach Socha, all the coaches that were at Nevada, we've gone to that blue turf and won. And can't get caught up in a logo. They're still human. They're still going to play their brand of ball, and we as coaches, we got to find holes and chinks in the armor, and we got to go, execute and expose those weaknesses. Every team has weaknesses. How do you expose them? That's where our focus has to be. Thanks for listening all the way out in Boise.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
They texted in a while ago and said it's nice to have a local show to get away from the BSU propaganda that they have over there. I was like, yes, that's right. Thank you for tuning in. They did also ask another question.
Yeah.
They'd like to know what it was like for you to meet your hero, The Rock, and if there are any other future sponsorship opportunities like he did with Papa Tui. I feel like not having Manuma be a spokesperson for their shampoo line is a missed NIL opportunity.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, I think Peter is really trying to get the Head and Shoulders deal like Troy Polamalu, but that makes a good point. Things that we haven't thought of. It was always a lifelong dream to meet The Rock. We didn't get to talk very long, and we haven't talked since. But our stories are actually very similar. Like $7 production. This is not me trying to one up him. When Emily and I first got together and we moved from Mary Hardin Baylor to North Texas, I'll always remember the day of just we move into the new house and our account is in the red. Like we are flat broke. We sold TV. We sold a TV just to pay for a moving truck. And when we got to that house in Denton, Texas, I remember we didn't know what we were going to do for dinner. And luckily you said, you know what, let's just try to order a pizza, even though our account's in red. Let's just see if it works. And by the grace of God, it did work. And I just remember sitting in that floor. It was me, Emily, and our oldest son, Peyton. He was a baby at the time. And I just remember in that moment, I thought about the $7 deal with The Rock. And I was like, if that guy can do that, I can get through this with my family being in the red. And that's always resonated with me. And it's always been something that, I've always felt like me and that guy have had in common. And there's so many people that have those type of stories, just coming from nothing and then being where we are in life now. That's what made that moment so special, is because, that whole backstory, you know what I mean? And just watching what The Rock does for so many people, like, man, I hope I can get a platform one day where I can do so much for so many people. Like, that stuff is inspiring. And, let's root for the good people in the world, you know what I mean? And let's strive to do what people like The Rock are doing. Answer the other question, if there's any other opportunities, not that I know of, The Rock, if you're listening, which I'm sure you are, because
totally.
Why wouldn't you be listening to the greatest sports show on the radio at 8:00 in the morning, Hawaii time? Just know my phone is always on. I have the ZOA.
That's right.
I have the ZOA logo as the O's and the Brotherhood tattoo on my arm. So I'm always willing to do deals with The Rock, and always willing to be the salesman of ZOA and Papatui and whatever else needs to be sold.
I love it. And for sure we'll continue to, hopefully The Rock comes back, and we got to get either Peter Manuma with Papatui or the Troy Polamalu deal for sure with Head and Shoulders, because that would be amazing. And I mean, he's just such a phenomenal player and a good representation of this team so far. And again, I want to double down to what we said earlier. I think it almost will make it more special when Hawaii wins. And, when we shock the world and upset Boise here, because all the fans are going to show up and we're going to be loud and proud, and it's going to be sold out. I know we got to take care of business at San Diego State first.
Yep.
But as a fan, you guys got to plan to be there for Boise, because you don't want to miss the big upset that's going to happen for sure. And when that does, I think it's cooler, like, when the wins come and we can look back and say, look, we were able to win without this stadium situation, without all of this NIL money that gets poured into the program. There's some which we're very appreciative of, those that make it possible, of course.
Absolutely.
But nothing compared to some of these other schools and the facilities, yada, yada, yada. And it kind of makes it more endearing and more special that you can put together a team that doesn't have the same resources, because it just proves the power of the players that go out there and how much they can do, and then the coaching staff and being able to keep that culture together.
Yeah, and I think, if I could just send a message to all the fans, and show it for our boys, people don't really understand how much work they put in, and how much, when you guys are in that stadium and you're cheering like that UCLA game, the energy that gives those kids, and that feeling is something that, as a player, it can't ever be replaced. You feel like when your back's against the wall, like ours always is, that you have people who will have your back. You know what I mean? And that will come in and help you. Because it takes all of us. It's not just the players. It's not just the coaches. It's the whole island. And if this team, the people of this island can really get behind our boys and start showing up to these games and giving that the boys the crowd energy and the things that they need, and have their back, man, who knows what could happen? You know what I mean? I think UCLA was a good example. And then, moving forward, we'll just go out and finish those type of games. But we need the fans, the boys need you guys. And so please come out.
Yes, we'll see you there. All right. That was perfectly said. Usually I give, the guests the last word to say to the fans, but you went on right there with it, and it was perfect as we just got to wrap up. Don't forget, you guys, stick around for the second hour, which will be HPU Sharks Weekly featuring HPU men's basketball. And one last thing for you, Chef, are the Cowboys going to beat the Giants today?
Yes. I'm not losing faith in the Dallas Cowboys. They're 0-2 at home. I believe this game is in New York tonight. So we'll go 2-0 on the road. And then we'll see everybody in February when the Super Bowl hits, because we'll be in it and we're going to win it.
Perfect. For Coach Thomas Sheffield, I'm Ku'ulei Agbayani. Mahalo for listening. It's been Wake Up in the Den. Bye.